What's everything you need to know about selling a home as is? We'll cover that today in Frequently Asked Friday. What is going on, party people? In this video today, what we're going to cover for you is everything you need to know about selling a property as is, or everything I can think of that you might need to know about selling a property as is. Let's jump right into it. All right, so first and foremost, let's define terms. So I have found in my travels, in my experiences, that when you talk about an as-is sale, a lot of people mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of ambiguity around what does that term mean. So just for context, I'm going to define what that means in our local Central Virginia market. If you are watching this outside of Central Virginia, thank you for tuning in. However, this may or may not be applicable to you. So when we talk about an as-is sale, essentially what that means is two things: that we are agreeing up front that no repairs are going to be done and or negotiated on the property. So the seller is basically putting it out there up front. Hey, I'm not negotiating any repairs. I'm not fixing anything. I'm not negotiating credits towards repairs. It also means that that seller is not going to be giving any of the typical inspections or warranties that we see in a traditional sale in our market, which include termite inspections, well and septic inspections, if applicable. There's also going to be no guarantees on the heating system, the cooling system, electrical, and or plumbing systems. In our traditional contracts, a seller has to guarantee that, all the plumbing, heating, cooling, HVAC, all that's going to be working at closing. Not the same deal on an as-is sale. On that as-is sale, the buyer also generally has the right to inspect the property and then either terminate the contract, meaning they can walk away, keep their earnest money deposit, go on down the road, we tap pause and we go our separate ways, or they can move forward with the understanding that, hey, I've accepted the property in its condition and I've agreed to move forward. And that's the one thing that most sellers forget, is that if they sell their property as is, they generally have to give that buyer the option to terminate the contract if for whatever reason they don't like the home inspection. Now, let's talk about what I've experienced as far as why sellers want to sell as is. And what I'm gonna do for you, I'm gonna break down the reasons that I don't think you should sell as is, and then I'm gonna break down the reasons where I think there are legitimate reasons to sell as is. The first thing that I find reasons not to sell as is you don't want to have the hassle of negotiating repairs, but you also wanna get top dollar. Right? That's equivalent to saying, hey, I want six-pack abs, but I don't want to have to do that diet or exercise thing. I hate to break it to you. You are not able to have your cake and eat it too. If you want to get top dollar, selling as is probably not the best bet. A reason not to sell as is you think you're going to get grinded down on repairs negotiations. So at least in the market we're in right now, time of this filming, July of 2023, we're in an extreme seller's market. We're seeing where a lot of buyers are either waiving home inspections or they're saying, hey, I'm not going to ask for anything. So if you're fearful that you're just going to get grinded down on a negotiation, realize that's not really the case, at least in the market we're in at the time of this recording. And then the third and final reason not to sell as is that you're fearful of what might come up on that buyer's home inspection. There's a very simple fix to this: get a home inspection yourself. So you have the option as a seller before you go to market to get your own home inspection. Yes, it's going to run you $400 or $500, but if you're fearful of what might show up, go ahead and just discover that up front, and then you have the option to either fix said items or disclose it when you go to put your property on the market. Now, let's break down some legitimate reasons why I, as a real estate professional, would recommend to a client that they are a good candidate for selling as is. The first, if they are willing to trade convenience or the hassle factor for a little less money. So if you are somebody that says, hey, I don't care about squeezing every single shekel out of this home, I got plenty of equity, or you just won the lottery, whatever the story is, and you just say, hey, I just want to sell it, get done with it. I don't want to do as is. And if that means I don't get every nickel out of it, then that's fine. Then you might be a candidate. But once again, if you're looking to get maximum dollar, selling as is probably not your best. Secondly, if you have a property that is in need of a ton of repairs. So if we have a lot of unfinished projects, if we've got a lot of repairs work that needs to be done and we simply can't afford to do it or don't want to do it, you might be a good candidate for as is. And then last but not least, if your circumstances dictate that you don't have the time or the budget to negotiate said repairs, i.e. divorce, foreclosure, or an inheritance property, and maybe you're living across the country, those are all good scenarios where selling as is a viable option. All right, so next let's go through the procedure of made the decision to sell as is. Now you've got two routes that you can do this. You can either sell your property off market to an investor, to a neighbor, to a family member, what have you, or you can put it on the market with a real estate professional and go to the open market. So the problem that I see with a lot of folks that they will call investors, because investors will promise that, hey, this will be an easy transaction, it'll be cash, it'll be easy, you can pick the day of your closing, you don't have to fix anything. The problem is, if you are shopping your property only to a handful of investors, you're not going to get as good of an offer as if you put that property on the open market and you have every investor in town looking at it, not only looking at it, but competing for it, right? And realize, guys, that the professional investment companies that you see on TV, that send you mail, that send you text messages, that show up in your email inbox or show up on your social feed, those are folks that typically make the worst offers because they have the margin to market, right? If they've got enough money to market to get themselves in front of you, they are generally not going to be your best option because they're going to have the widest spread between what they buy your property for and what they're able to go sell it for after they fix it up or do whatever they do with it. So realize those professional investment companies are typically going to give you worst offers. All right, so let's talk about the process of selling a home if you were to hire a real estate professional like myself. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend to you is to get a home inspection on your property. You might say, Chris, but we decided we're not going to fix anything. Totally understand. The reason that $400 to $500 spend is a good investment is because when you are selling a property as is, if you don't give any context behind that, people are going to assume the worst of the property. So I always give the analogy to sellers, hey, if you walked onto a car dealership and the car dealer said, hey, that particular car right there, that thing is sold as is, you would naturally assume the worst of it, or you would need to assume the worst of it of, hey, whatever I pay for that thing, I've really got a budget that, like, the transmission could be blown, the engine could be shot, whatever, right? When we do a home inspection, what we do for that buyer is we quantify what's wrong with the property, and then in turn, what's not wrong with the property, right? If the buyer is able to quantify, hey, this is what I know I'm gonna need to address, I kind of know what I'm getting myself into, not only are they more apt to give you an offer, they're more apt to give you more money for the house because they know what's wrong with it and what's not wrong with it. Getting that home inspection is also gonna give you the best shot of buyers completely waiving their home inspection because the home inspection's already been done. So that way they know once they come in and make you that offer and you accept that offer, you're moving yourself on a closing. So once we get that home inspection, we're gonna wanna price the property appropriately, right? We've decided to sell as is because we don't want to fix anything, so we need to price it appropriately. So we don't want to underprice the property, but we want to think through how much money would it take for a buyer to fix this property up, to get it up to, you know, par condition. And then generally what I find is we need to leave not only the repairs costs. So let's, for example, say a property would be worth $400,000 if it was all fixed up and it's going to take $50,000 to get it there. We may be able to price it $350,000, but what I found is we typically want to price that property at $325,000 because we want to give some incentive to buyers that, hey, if you come in and you spend all this money and you do all the work, you know, you're not just getting back to what this property would be worth all fixed up, but you're going to have some equity, you're going to have some meat on the bone once you get all done with the property. So that's how we found to price the properties accordingly. And last but not least, realize that when you are selling your property as is with a real estate professional on the open market, you can still dictate all those same terms that you might be advertised from a professional investor. So we can still dictate the fact that we'd like to be able to stay in the property until a certain time. We'd like to select a move out date. We'd like to have a rent back of some sort so you can go buy your next property. And or you might be able to dictate, or we can dictate that, hey, anything that you don't feel like taking from the property, you get to leave behind. We've done that plenty of times, and most of those buyers, you know, they plan to put a dumpster in the driveway anyway and rip out the kitchen, rip out the bathroom. So you leaving behind some personal property is really not a big deal at all. So realize that if you put your home on the market, you don't have to go clear it all out. So hopefully this was the definitive guide to selling your property as is. If you have any questions or concerns I didn't cover in this video, go ahead and throw them in the comments or shoot me a DM. Thank you guys for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.